I was once happily married to Jessica. We had 3 perfect years together, building what I thought was an unshakable bond and a close relationship with her family. But I never saw the storm coming from her sister Amanda, whose innocent smile masked dangerous intentions. When she falsely claimed I got her pregnant, my world exploded without warning. My wife slapped me. Her family turned on me instantly. Before I share how my in-laws destroyed my life, and what happened when my ex-wife tracked me down years later, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted. My name is Tyrone, 32 years old, and formerly a successful construction project manager in Chicago. I met Jessica at my college friend's summer barbecue 5 years ago. She was stunning with auburn hair that caught the sunset just right, but it was her laugh that hooked me. Genuine and uninhibited, we locked eyes across a crowded yard, and within minutes, we were deep in conversation about everything from childhood memories to dream vacations. Our romance moved quickly, but felt right at every turn. 8 months of dating led to my proposal on the Chicago riverfront, her tears of joy reflecting the city lights. We married in a beautiful lakeside ceremony surrounded by friends and family, including her tight-knit clan parents, Richard and Martha brothers Jake and Daniel, and of course her younger sister Amanda. I remember meeting Amanda for the first time at our engagement dinner. She seemed sweet and enthusiastic about welcoming me to the family, though something in her eyes never quite matched her smile. She hugged me a beat too long, but I dismissed it as just family affection. Jessica and I settled into married bliss. We bought our first home in a nice suburb, filled it with memories, and started planning for children. Every Sunday meant dinner at her parents' spacious home where Richard would grill steaks while Martha fussed over everyone having enough to eat. Her brothers became my friends too. Jake and I bonded over fantasy football while Daniel and I discovered a mutual love for hiking. Amanda became a regular fixture in our lives through these family gatherings. When her car broke down one winter evening, I drove 40 miles to help her, waiting 3 hours for a tow truck in the freezing cold. Jessica thanked me profusely for looking after her sister, and I was happy to be the reliable brother-in-law. The first warning signs appeared so gradually I nearly missed them. Amanda began stopping by our house unexpectedly, often when she knew Jessica would be at her yoga class. Just in the neighborhood, she would say staying for coffee, that stretched into hours. I noticed her casual touch as a hand on my arm that lingered, standing too close when we talked. She fished for compliments, asking loaded questions like, "Do you think I look better than Jessica in this dress?" I deflected awkwardly each time. I felt increasingly uncomfortable, but hesitated to mention anything to Jessica. The sisters shared an intense bond, forged through their parents' temporary separation during their teens. They protected each other fiercely, and I worried my concerns would sound petty or worse, like I was imagining things. Everything came to a head at the family Christmas gathering last year. Amanda drank too much wine and cornered me in the kitchen while I was loading the dishwasher. "You know Jessica doesn't appreciate you like I would," she whispered, her breath hot against my ear. I stepped back immediately, knocking over a glass that shattered on the floor. The noise brought Jessica in, ending the uncomfortable moment, but leaving me shaken. That night I finally confided in Jessica about her sister's behavior. She laughed it off, saying, "That's just Amanda. She gets affectionate when she drinks. She's always been a little dramatic. Don't take it personally." But Amanda grew bolder. She created situations where we would be alone, asking for my help with her laptop, calling when her apartment door supposedly jammed. Each time I maintained strict boundaries and tried to involve Jessica. But Amanda was clever about timing these emergencies. When she began texting me directly about personal problems, I showed the messages to Jessica, who still seemed unconcerned. "She trusts you," Jessica explained. "She doesn't have many stable people in her life." I tried to be understanding, but my instincts screamed caution, a warning I tragically ignored. The accusation happened during the monthly family dinner at Richard and Martha's suburban home. I noticed unusual tension from Amanda the moment we arrived. She barely spoke during the meal, her eyes downcast, occasionally shooting furtive glances my way. I whispered to Jessica, "Is your sister okay?" but she just shrugged, unaware of the bomb about to detonate. Martha had just served her famous apple cobbler when Amanda clinked her water glass. "I have an announcement," she said, her voice trembling. The table fell silent. "I'm pregnant. 8 weeks along." Initial congratulations died when Richard asked about the father. Amanda's eyes welled with tears as she pointed directly at me. "It's Tyrone's." The world stopped. Jessica turned to me disbelief, morphing instantly to rage. Before I could process what was happening, her open palm connected with my cheek, the crack echoing in the sudden silence. "How could you?" she screamed. I barely got out. "This is insane." I never before. Jake and Daniel launched across the table. Jake's fist crushed into my nose, while Daniel grabbed me in a chokehold. They dragged me outside, punching and kicking while I tried to cover my face. I felt my ribs crack under their boots. Richard stood in the doorway, watching with cold fury as his sons beat me bloody. They left me on the front lawn, spitting on the ground beside my face. "Come near our family again, and we'll kill you," Jake hissed. Through my swollen eye, I saw Jessica sobbing in her mother's arms, while Amanda watched from the window, her face eerily calm. I drove myself to the emergency room, telling the sympathetic nurse I'd been mugged. X-rays confirmed a broken nose and 2 fractured ribs. The physical pain paled compared to my confusion and heartbreak. How could Jessica believe such a lie? 3 years of marriage destroyed in seconds without even giving me a chance to defend myself. When I arrived at our home, the locks had been changed. Jessica wouldn't answer my calls or texts. I slept in my car that first night, then checked into a dingy motel the next day, using our credit card, while I still had access. For days I called everyone: Jessica, her parents, her brothers, our mutual friends, trying desperately to explain my innocence. No one would listen. Jessica texted once, "Don't contact me again. My lawyer will handle everything." The rumors spread like wildfire. My phone buzzed constantly with accusatory messages from friends and acquaintances. "How could you do this to Jessica? Always thought you were a good guy. Disgusting." Even my boss called me into his office, suggesting I take some time off until this personal situation resolves. 48 hours after the accusation, I was served divorce papers at my motel. Jessica was filing for everything: the house, all assets, even my retirement account, citing adultery and emotional distress. The lawyer told me coldly that fighting would only make things worse for everyone. I tried reasoning with a mutual friend: Amanda's lying. "When the baby is born, a DNA test will prove it's not mine." She replied, "That's 7 months away. Your life will be destroyed by then. Nobody will ever see you the same way again." I realized she was right when I discovered Jessica had emptied our joint accounts, leaving me with barely enough for another week at the motel. My credit cards were frozen. Friends I'd known for years blocked my number. The father-in-law, who had once called me the son I never had, now threatened to shoot me if I approached their property. For 3 weeks, I lived in limbo, watching my life disintegrate. I couldn't work, colleagues avoided eye contact, and rumors followed me everywhere. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The truth meant nothing against Amanda's tears and my wife's unquestioning belief in her sister. One night, sitting on the edge of the motel bed, staring at walls papered with my desperation, I made a decision. Chicago had been my home for 8 years, but now it was poisoned. If no one would believe me now, why would they believe me in 7 months? Even if vindicated, the damage was irreversible. The next morning, I sold my car to a cash buyer and pawned my watch and wedding ring. I boxed up my remaining possessions and shipped them to a storage facility under my cousin's name. I wrote Jessica one final letter, maintaining my innocence and expressing my heartbreak at her instant distrust. "The foundation of marriage is belief in each other," I wrote. "You chose your sister's word over our 3 years together, without a moment's hesitation. That's something I can never forget or forgive." I booked a one-way ticket to Seattle, a city where I knew no one. As the plane lifted off, I watched Chicago shrink beneath me, feeling strangely numb. At 32, I was starting completely over my past life in ashes. Seattle greeted me with signature rain, as if washing away my former self. With 2 suitcases and about $7,000 to my name, I rented a small room in a shared house in the Fremont neighborhood. The elderly landlady asked few questions, accepting cash for the first 2 months. I gave only my first name. Those initial weeks passed in a fog of depression. I barely left my room except to use the bathroom or grab food from the corner store. My phone remained off. I couldn't bear any more hateful messages. At night, I'd stare at the ceiling, replaying every interaction with Amanda, searching for signs I might have missed, ways I could have prevented this nightmare. After nearly a month of this existence, I forced myself to function. I found work with a small construction company that didn't ask for references, accepting a position well below my qualifications and previous salary. The physical labor helped. Exhausting my body meant fewer hours tormented by thoughts of Jessica and the life I'd lost. I began seeing a therapist, Dr. Warner, telling her everything. "You're experiencing profound betrayal trauma," she explained during our third session. "Your wife's immediate disbelief wasn't just a rejection of your word, it was a rejection of your entire shared reality." Those words crystallized my pain, giving shape to the formless ache I carried daily. 6 months into my self-imposed exile, I met Marcus, a fellow construction worker, with an easy laugh, who invited me for beers after shift. He never pressed when I deflected questions about my past, simply saying, "We've all got history, man. You're cool now. That's what matters." His friendship provided my first genuine smile since leaving Chicago. By month 8, my work ethic earned me a promotion to site supervisor. I found a small studio apartment of my own, relishing the independence of my rebuilt life. I established new routines: morning runs along the waterfront, weekend hikes in the Cascades, Thursday night trivia at the local pub with Marcus and some other guys from work. I began using my full name again, though I never mentioned Chicago. Seattle's anonymity comforted me. Nobody knew me as poor Tyrone or that guy who slept with his sister-in-law. I was just another face in a city of transplants. Slowly, the crushing weight on my chest lightened. Some mornings I woke up without Jessica being my first thought. On the 1-year anniversary of my departure, I took the day off work and hiked to a remote viewpoint overlooking the city and Puget Sound. There, alone with the endless sky, I allowed myself to fully grieve for Jessica, for the children we'd planned, for the trust I'd lost in human connection. I cried until my throat was raw, then watched the sunset paint the water gold. Something shifted that day. I wasn't healed, but I was healing. I began dating casually. Nothing serious, just coffee or dinner with women I met through apps or friends. Each time, trust issues surfaced like sea mines. One woman touched my arm in a way that reminded me of Amanda, and I abruptly ended the date. Another asked innocent questions about my family that sent me spiraling. Dr. Warner helped me navigate these triggers, assuring me that my caution was normal but shouldn't become a prison. Meanwhile, back in Chicago, a different drama unfolded. Jessica had rallied around her sister, accompanying her to doctor appointments, helping decorate a nursery, organizing a baby shower. But cracks appeared in Amanda's story. She gave inconsistent accounts of our alleged encounters, dates that didn't align with my known whereabouts. Her pregnancy progressed, visible proof of her claim. But doubt began creeping into the family's certainty. The baby arrived in early spring, a healthy boy with dark features that matched neither my light brown hair and eyes, nor Amanda's fair coloring. Richard Ever, the pragmatist, insisted on a paternity test, despite Amanda's tearful objections. The results shocked everyone, but confirmed what I had maintained all along. I was not the father. Confronted with irrefutable evidence, Amanda's carefully constructed lie collapsed. Through heaving sobs, she confessed the truth. The father was her married boss, with whom she'd had a brief affair. When she discovered the pregnancy, panic overtook reason. Seeing me happily married to her sister, successful, respected by her family, triggered long-simmering jealousy. Her accusation was impulsive, driven by fear and resentment, but once spoken, she couldn't take it back. Jessica's world imploded for the second time in a year. The sister she'd believed unconditionally had betrayed her in the cruelest way imaginable. The husband she'd condemned without hesitation had been innocent all along. The family that had violently defended Amanda's honor had committed an unforgivable injustice. Her first instinct was to call me, but my number was disconnected. She went to our old house, now sold to strangers. She contacted mutual friends, my former workplace, even my distant relatives. Nobody knew where I'd gone. I had vanished completely. Driven by guilt and a desperate need to make amends, Jessica hired a private investigator. For months, the search yielded nothing, until a former coworker remembered I'd once mentioned wanting to visit Seattle. With this thin lead, the investigator eventually tracked me down through tax records from my new job. 23 months after the false accusation that destroyed our marriage, Jessica boarded a plane to Seattle without telling her family. She had my address, but no idea what she would find or if I would even open the door. The knock came on a Sunday morning as I prepared breakfast. Through the peephole I saw a face that had haunted my dreams and nightmares for 2 years. Jessica stood on my doorstep, hair shorter than I remembered, dark circles under her eyes, looking simultaneously familiar and like a stranger. My hand froze on the doorknob. For a moment I considered pretending I wasn't home. But 2 years of therapy had taught me that avoidance prolongs pain. With a deep breath I opened the door. "Tyrone," she whispered, her voice breaking on my name. The sound unlocked a flood of emotions I thought I'd processed and packed away. "I am so sorry." We stared at each other across the threshold of my new life. Jessica spoke first, words tumbling out. Amanda had confessed everything. The family was devastated by their mistake. They had been trying to find me for months. Tears streamed down her face as she detailed her sister's betrayal and her own unbearable guilt. "Can I come in?" she finally asked. "Please. I flew across the country just to tell you face to face how sorry I am." I stepped aside, allowing her into my small apartment. It felt surreal watching her take in the evidence of the life I'd built without her photos of new friends on the refrigerator, hiking gear by the door, Seattle art on the walls. Nothing remained from our shared past. "You look good," she said awkwardly, perching on the edge of my couch. "Healthy." "I am now," I replied, remaining standing. It took a long time. Jessica explained everything in detail: Amanda's confession, the paternity test, the family's collective shame and remorse. "My brothers want to apologize too. My parents. They can barely look at Amanda now. Everyone misses you." I listened silently, emotions washing through me. Vindication, residual anger, unexpected pity for the family that had fractured under the weight of this lie. When she finished, I finally spoke. "What hurt most wasn't even the accusation. It was how quickly you all believed it. 3 years together, Jessica. 3 years of building trust, being there for you, loving your family as my own. And in one moment, without even asking me, you decided I was capable of betraying you with your own sister." She flinched at my words but nodded. "I know. I have no excuse. I let my sister's tears blind me to the man I knew you were. I rebuilt everything from nothing." I continued, gesturing around us. "New city, new job, new friends. I spent months in therapy working through what happened. I'm not the same person you married." Hope flickered across her face. "Neither am I. We could start fresh, Tyrone. I'd move here away from my family. We could try again, knowing what we know now." For a fleeting moment I imagined it: reconciliation, a second chance at the life we'd planned. But the fantasy dissolved as quickly as it formed. Some broken things can be mended but never restored to their original strength. "No," I said gently. "What we had was beautiful, but it was built on a foundation that proved too fragile. True love requires unshakable faith in each other. You didn't have that for me when it mattered most. I'll spend the rest of my life regretting that," she whispered. "I hope you don't," I replied. "Regret is a prison. I've worked too hard to free myself from mine. I forgive you, Jessica. Not for you, but for myself. I need to release this to fully move forward." We talked until evening fell, sharing painful truths and cautious hopes for separate futures. I showed her photos of the hiking trips that had healed my spirit, told her about my promotion, even mentioned a woman I'd recently started seeing. She listened with genuine interest, though pain flickered behind her eyes. As night approached, I walked Jessica to her hotel. Our goodbye was gentle, a brief hug between two people who had once been everything to each other, and were now polite strangers. "I wish you happiness, Tyrone," she said. "You deserve it more than anyone I know." "I wish the same for you," I replied, meaning it. "Tell your family I forgive them too." Walking home alone through Seattle's drizzle, I felt lighter than I had in years. I had faced my past and remained standing. The betrayal that once defined me was now just a chapter in my story, not its conclusion. In the months that followed, I continued building my life. The woman I was dating became serious. Sarah, a kindergarten teacher who approached relationships with refreshing directness. When I eventually told her my full story, she held my hand and said, "Their loss is my gain. I would have believed you." Those words healed something deep within me. The experience taught me lessons I carry daily. Trust must be mutual and earned continually. Family loyalty needs healthy boundaries. Self-respect must come before others' approval. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes walking away isn't surrender. It's the strongest choice you can make. I never returned to Chicago or saw Jessica's family again. Occasionally, I receive updates through mutual friends: Amanda raising her son with her parents' help, Jessica moving to Boston for a fresh start. I wish them peace, without needing to be part of their story anymore. Today I know that while betrayal shaped me, it didn't define me. The man who left Chicago broken has been replaced by someone stronger, more discerning, and ultimately more at peace. Sometimes the greatest revenge against those who hurt you is to build a life they can no longer touch. Have you ever had to completely rebuild your life after betrayal? Share your experience in the comments. If this story helped you feel less alone, please like and subscribe. Remember, sometimes the family we choose is more loyal than the family we're born into. Thank you for listening, and may you find the strength to stand firm when your integrity is questioned.